G'day and welcome back for more Space Engineers Survival, and the first thing I'm going to be doing is fixing the tick and the buttercup. Sati Dutak was the one who very awesomely showed how the issue with the multiple ships attached to the same base can be fixed, and then I was talking to 1WSX10, and now a similar fix has been incorporated into the script itself, so I'm going to show you how we set that up. First off, we are going to go to our vector thrust programmable block, we're going to browse the workshop, and we are going to update it with the latest version of the script. We are then going to go to this part, and we are going to set our name. So we are going to call this tick, or maybe the tick. Check code. Okay, remember and exit. Then we're going to go to our hotbars, remove that. On this hotbar, we are going to set up a run with %apply tags. What this is going to do is apply the tick tags to all of our atmospheric thrusters and our rotors that are controlled by vector thrust. That way they will be the only ones that the script on the tick controls, which is exactly what we want. Then I can do the same thing to the buttercup, and we're good to go. It's probably best to do this when you're not attached to the base, since it's going to do it to all of the ones that are currently on this grid. So now, if we go back to our thing, we'll see this tag has been applied to all of the blocks controlled by the script, which is awesome. Now, we can park, and then we can test this with the buttercup. Something else I might do just to aid with turning around in here. So I'm just going to show these in terminal briefly. We are going to increase our turning angle to 25, and we're going to give a little bit of a turning angle on the rear wheels as well, because it's really hard turning the tick around in here. So let's try this now. Oh yeah, that's going to be heaps better. Let's grab the buttercup and let's see if this has fixed our problem. Hop in here. Disconnect. I hear silence. Silence is golden. Let's go check it out. No clanging. Yes, it works. It works. So we're going to do the same here. %apply tags. So this apply tags both sets the script up so that it only functions on items that are tagged, as well as applies the tags. If you apply the tags manually, this will not work. The guide for vector thrust has already been updated by 1WSX10. I don't think that they got much sleep last night. There we go. The buttercup is set up as well. So now any future vector thrust vehicles I want are not going to cause clanging on each other when they're connected to the base. I have to say a huge thank you to both Sati Dutak and 1WSX10. I honestly can't believe that they updated the script in a day after we were just talking about this yesterday. It's incredible. The commitment of modders and scripters to Space Engineers is mind-blowing. Right, now we have a project to do. We have a nice blank canvas to work from, and we are going to build a grinding pit. I tested out a few designs in creative mode, and I'm so glad I did this, because the design that I had originally planned for this ended up with tiny chunks of debris flying out of it at 1,000,000 miles an hour, or at least fast enough that they didn't actually collide with the lid, they just phased straight through it, which is obviously not ideal. I'm going to try a design which I have not tested, which may or may not be the smartest idea I've ever come up with, but it should be entertaining to see just how well it goes, or how poorly it goes. What I'm going to first do is set up a couple of these beams around the place so that we've got somewhere to attach our lights to, as it would be nice to work in a well-lit environment. Okay, we've now got a workspace we can actually use. It's got good lighting. And now to decide how we're going to do this. My thought, and what I hope I'm going to be able to pull off, is to have a design where we have a drop shaft that comes down. Then, from this direction, we mine out this way, and we also mine out this way. From this side, we will have a bunch of grinders on a piston that are going to push across the gap that goes all the way up to the opening, push the debris up against voxels, and grind them down in the kind of like a compactor sort of method over onto this side. Fingers crossed I can actually make this thing work, but it's going to require some incredibly careful drilling. Good thing I've got some practice with that. I suspect we'll probably still end up with some bits and pieces that are left behind because I won't be able to get the drilling perfectly square to where the grinders can actually break down stuff. But fingers crossed I can get it close enough. So, in order to do this, I'm actually going to grind out the hole in the ground, and I am going to put a lid on this bit as well, just in case there are a few bits that fly past. I'm hoping that the lid will be able to stop them, because by the time they reach it, they should have bounced on a couple of things and hopefully slowed down enough. So we want I think a 5x4 hole is going to be about right. So that'll be the size of the pit. I don't think we'll be able to fit the drifting pursuants in here as one piece, so we'll have to break them down before we move them, but I just don't think I want to build like a size that I'd need to for one of them. It'd have to be, I think, 7x7 or something of that magnitude, which is just huge. I think this is more reasonable. Plus it leaves this area here so that the carrier craft can actually land there and park in the same space. Now, if we're going to use this dimension as our pit, we're going to need to drill down. And I think I might start laying out a drilling guide first. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop it just in here. So if we place armor block like that, we can actually build it all inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then, so this is going to be the bottom part of our pit. Then we need to go up probably 4 blocks is a minimum. So if we have a 4x5 grinder wall, that'll come in from one side like so. Then we probably need to have maybe 1, 2. Yeah, we'll have 2 blocks in height below our current surface. So if you imagine these 4 points are going to be lining up perfectly in these 4 corners, and that's going to be the height of it. Then from this side, we will have our grinder wall coming out. We probably want to make this maybe 4 blocks deep, like so. Then we're going to need a similarly sized space, but this space will just be voxels. So this is the side I'm going to have to mine out incredibly carefully. And I think what I might do is make it fairly deep so that we can get the whole grinder wall across the gap and then switch it on from here. So there's no room for anything to bounce out. So if we go to maybe 6. I'm going to have to be so incredibly careful with this. I'm going to be using left-click mining at times as well, because if I don't, I'm just not going to be able to get the hole accurate enough that this mostly works. I'm just going to use light armor blocks around the entire thing, as that gives me 2 sides to work off. And it means I can work off the inner surface of it and know that if I can just barely see the outside, then I'm pretty well right on the mark. And I only get 1 take at this, so if I stuff it up, there's always going to be a little hole, like a little cavity in a tooth, that will keep all of the goodies hidden in it, which will drive me insane. All right, and to name it, we are going to call this grinder, oops, drilling guide grinder pit. Okay. Blueprint it. And now we grind it down. Having just placed it. Where'd that go? Doing these drilling guides in survival, oddly, actually ends up being easier, I reckon. You could lay down rows of blocks in creative, but because of the way that the scaffolding blocks can be viewed from even inside, as they have multiple surfaces, compared to a complete block which only has an exterior surface, it's actually, I reckon, easier to use a drilling guide made out of incomplete blocks than it is to use one that's made out of complete blocks. So despite the time it takes me to lay all this out and then grind it out straight after, I actually prefer doing this in survival. Alright, here goes nothing. You might be wondering why I decided to lay it out with this orientation, so with the pistons coming from this side, and it's pretty simple. I figured if we have the pistons down this end, we're going to be able to much more cheaply hook it up to the conveyor system of the base, which will be much, much better. Some of you guys might be wondering why I didn't just attach drills in place of the grinders and drill this out. Well, it's because I want these corners to be as sharp as possible, and the only way to do that is to use the drill, the hand drill. If I use the ship-mounted drills, the hole will be just way, 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 way too big, and it won't work in the way that I'm hoping it will. As I'm hoping that the voxels will act to contain any of the bouncing parts in a way that armor blocks simply won't. Plus, I can't grind down the voxels, so that adds another little benefit. But wow, is this ever time consuming. I think I've done a whole lot of not very much, and it's already taken me about 15 minutes because I'm trying to be so careful. Jeez, I'm glad I got that energy low warning then, because it made me look at my hydrogen, which is almost out, and getting out of that hole might have been a bit of a challenge. Definitely got lucky there. Definitely got lucky. Well, I think that took me about 40 minutes to drill out this accurately, but I'm fairly happy with the results. I suspect this should prevent most of the little pockets from being there. Hopefully I don't have to drill out too much more when I start actually pushing the grinders through there to see if they'll pass. But yeah, I'm pretty happy. We've got... So if the grinder heads have gotten in there, that'll take up that block, because I want... When I move the grinders into this compactor part, I'm going to want to have the cube part of the grinder actually blocking off any of the possible exits before I activate the grinders. So that's going to mean that the cube bit should be at least on this row, but possibly even on this row, which means the grinder head will be here, and that will leave us with 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I reckon 4 blocks is enough. And that means we need an entire piston's worth of expansion from when we're already at this ready point. So I think we could possibly do this with 2 pistons. If the cube part is here, 1, 2, 3. If the cube part is here, we're going to need 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll bring it back to there, and then I'll need to bring it back yet again to here. So I'm going to need 3 pistons at the back of this, because I'm going to need to move 11 blocks in total. I want the grinders to go right up against this voxel wall, so that anything that might be in here will hopefully be ground away. I could possibly attempt to drill out a little pocket up here where I could come down and have a camera right up here so it looks down onto where the grinder's working. I think that'd be kind of cool. But I don't know if the pocket would be a bad idea. I think a pocket in the roof should be fine, because anything that goes up there should bounce back down. We'll think about that one a bit more. I may just use the spectator cam for now so that we can see what's happening in there. Alright, let's drill that bit out. And I think what we could do with this wall, just to make the fit a little more snug. Oh no, I can't do that. I was about to say I might put a light armor slope like this, but then the grinders won't be able to pass, so I can't do that. And I also don't want to put armor right in against the wall here because, again, the grinders won't be able to pass. So what I'm going to do instead is grab these blocks and we'll place them around like so. Oh no! This is not good. 42, you say? What a convenient number of armor of steel plates to have when I'm trapped down somewhere. 42. It's like that number has significance or something. Haha! Phew! Looks like we've got a new mining operation site that we can see. That is a long way away, so I don't think the drones will actually reach me. And they come in from the same rough direction as the other one, so hopefully that'll be okay. It's back to what I was doing, which was placing these blocks around the outside here. I think it just makes it a bit of a nicer transition from cube to block, from cube to voxel, block to voxel. I think you know what I mean. Alright, let's turn off this projection because we are going to start building the mechanism. Alright, what we need is something going roughly back this way. Then let's pop up, and there we go. We have, I think that's going to be pretty well where I need to go. I'll keep going a little bit further. Yep, there's our corridor. A little bit more. Let's keep going through and see if we can get through to the conveyor system. And there we go. Sweet. So, let's start with some tubing. There we go, that'll be able to easily connect up. I'll do that later. I'm just going to try and lay down as many bits as possible so that I can get the real feel of how this is going to work. I think this will probably be far enough back. We'll find out shortly. Place 2 conveyor junctions like that. That'll bring us down to a decent height, and I definitely have not gone back far enough. So, piston. I needed 3, didn't I? 1, 2, yeah. Nowhere near far enough back. So I need to go another whole, probably 3 blocks back would be sensible. Now I'm going to do this the easy way with the pistons just stacked one on each other rather than having to double back on them since I have the available space. And it just makes my life a little bit easier. So I could do the usual conveyor, I could do the conveyor tubes instead of the blast door blocks in order to create the double backs where the pistons can actually slide against each other, but I've got room. I'm going to do it the easy way. 1, 2, 3. I think that'll be perfect. What I'm going to next add on to that is our grinder. So I can get away with doing this. So if we have a 1 grinder, like, let's do that. There, then there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we do another row across here. And I get my drill out because that is definitely in the way. Oof, that could have ended quite painfully for me. And then, lastly... Oh no, there's 2 more rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and... Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll leave that one empty so that I can get back through. So that'll be my massive grinder wall, and that'll push all the way back here. Before I go and weld any of that up though, I'm going to weld up the pistons. I'm going to extend them and just make sure that I do reach this back wall and make sure that I've got any of the bits of voxel out of the way. Like, I can see a piece here that's going to be problematic. So that I can extend these right out and push right up against that wall. But you may be wondering, how are these grinders actually going to communicate with one another? Well, I might have a little bit of fun with that. My thoughts would be, pop a conveyor tubes to pipe there, 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 and there. And I know I don't need to do it this way, but I think it looks interesting if we do something like this and join them up in a rather convoluted way. And there we go. Now all of them are connected up to the conveyor system, or at least once all of that's welded they will be. And I think it looks more interesting having the pipes going all over the place, which each way and that. I could even a bit more fun and do this. There we go. Even a little bit of redundancy. Turns out that there needs to be a little bit more of a gap than I had been allowing for, and in order to work out which parts need to get mined out that little bit more, I've had to take off some of the grinders, and what I'm going to do is do it piece by piece. So I'll run all the way forward with the top ones, then I'll add one of the side ones, and then I'll add more, and clear it out as we go. Because it was just too hard to work out which was causing the problems when I had them all on there. Yes! Ah, finally. Got it all lined up. Got a hole that it can all fit through. If we retract this one, retract this one, and retract this one, they should all move all the way back. Left this hole because I didn't want to get crushed while I was checking that it could actually get the whole way. But I'd placed those 2 earlier, so I know that they have a clear path. There were a few more of those tiny little pieces of voxel that I ran into, which is one of the big downsides to having to drill out a large volume like this entirely by hand. It massively increases the chance that you will have that sort of issue, which is unfortunate. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to drill out this bit of rock around here. Because I would like to make this look a little neater on this side. Yeah, I can go right to there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some light armor blocks up here. Followed by, where are they? This one. Followed by some blast door blocks. And we're going to go with blast door edges. Like so. So I think it'll just make the whole thing look a lot neater having that there. Cool. I'm also going to need to make sure that from up here, I build an access way to get down in there, since I'm probably going to want to at some point. I've been thinking about what I'm going to use as the first test for this once I've got it all welded up, and I think probably the best thing to use is actually going to be a sandbag. I'm going to need to replace the sandbag soon with a further upgraded design, and that's because I completely forgot something that I should have done last time, which I was very kindly reminded of in the comments, and that is I didn't include any way to quickly turn off the sandbags from a distance. I would have to go into each one individually and switch it off, going through the control panel, and that would be a big pain. So I'm going to add a programmable block and a timer to the sandbags, and that's to all of them, so that we can have the transmit receive script so that I can turn the turrets off, stopping them from shooting me as I go past. Because if I don't do that, I am just going to get shot up horribly every time I try and fly past any of my turrets with some salvage. So if I try to use one of them first, I know that's going to end horribly. And thus, the best way to do this seems to be, if we grind down some sandbags, we'll actually create an easier way to replace them. Rather than me having to weld each one up individually, I can just print off a new one for each one that I grind down and replace it that way. Sort of like recycling. That's what I prefer to think of it as. I'm going to recycle the sandbags and put out an upgraded version from the older parts. And it'll be a nice safe way for me to test this whole thing without having to go through and manually turn off every single piece of weaponry that is outside. So that is what I'm going to do. I'll grab one of the ones that's properly damaged, so that even has no... like one of the ones that doesn't even have a working solar panel on it, so that I'm getting rid of one that's going to end up being, well, useless soon anyway. I am not confident enough to fly the Buttercup down there without damaging it, so I'm going to do this by hand. Oh, I think I've got yet another different base that's showing up. Hopefully that one, again, doesn't quite reach my base with its drones. With all of these welded up, let's get ready to test it. So I'm going to set up a bit of a button panel, maybe? Actually, maybe I should put a proper control seat down. Let's put a control seat down. I think I'm going to need one anyway, and it will hopefully give me more flexibility in terms of what controls I have. Let's get some controls on our hotbar. Let's get our grinder pit pistons. Base grinder pit pistons. Save. And now we can go with groups. Eagles pistons, base grinder pit pistons. Extend and retract. Then we want our base grinders with a toggle on off. What I will do, hopefully soon I'll be able to do it. Actually, I might do it now. I'm going to test it. What we're going to do is we are going to place a sensor. We could probably place it just here temporarily. The idea of this sensor will be that it will be the control for the grinders being on and off. I don't want the grinders to be on when they're moving through this section, because then they'll just fling stuff straight out of the hole. I want them to turn on only once they get into this area. So what we're going to do is grab our sensor. We're going to show on HUD. We're going to show sensor's field range, and our front extent is going to be minimal. Our back extent is going to be... actually, everything can be minimal except for back. Right. Bottom. Top. Then the back extent can be, I think 7.5 will reach far enough. And it will not be detecting players. It will be detecting subgrids. Ooh, not quite far enough. Back extent, let's go with 9. Still not detecting the subgrid. I think it interacts with the... okay, so the piston won't trigger it. So what we're going to need to do is set up our bottom extent and make it... let's make it 10 meters. Let's make this one 10 as well. And now, what we should have is this going all the way back to there. So until the grinders get in range of this sensor, they won't turn on. And so that what we'll set this up with is setup actions. Grind. Oh, those will be groups. Grinders. Base grinders. So toggle on and toggle off. So we should see if I hop in here and retract our pistons. Let's get our spectator cam in a position so I can see what's going on. Oh no, they're stuck on something. Dang it. Of course that had happened.
Inventory full.
Oh, it was that rock that was jamming them. Ooh, that sensor might be in slightly the wrong spot. I think I'm going to have to move it. I think it's going to activate the grinders just a tiny bit too early. So let's... let's ditch the rock in my inventory. Move the sensor from this square to this one, as I think that will be about right. Alright, what we are going to do is left extent is... nothing. Oh, no. Yeah, left extent is nothing. Right extent is 8. Bottom extent is 1. Top extent is 1. Front extent is 1, and back extent will be 10. Let's see where that shows up. Does that show up down here nicely? Yes, it does. Perfect. Let's get it to, as we did before, not detect players, detect subgrids, set up actions, groups, grinders, base grinders, toggle on and toggle off on exit the sensor range. Let's see if this all works properly. Alright, let's get our lights on and let's test this out. And extend. Oh, that would probably be the back wall. Let's see if these turn on automatically. Oh yeah. Nice. And retract. Oh, yeah. Safety device. Huh. Didn't realize there were components down here. Alrighty, what time is it outside? Oh, it's nighttime. I think it's almost morning though, looking at where the sky is lightening. I think we shall grab ourselves something to grind down. Maybe I should grind down the one that I dropped on the side of the mountain. That might be an idea. Alright, looks like this is the perfect one to pick up, since I think it is damaged. Got some hints of sparks coming from it. Oh yeah, its solar panel's busted, so this is the perfect one to test the grinder pit on. Alright, and 6. In fact, I just noticed something. I really shouldn't have that right next to my lock and unlock key. Let's put that on a separate hotbar. Because it would be very easy for me to accidentally hit the wrong one. Now I've got two choices of how I do this. I can either drop this straight in the pit and see if the grinders will be able to push it into where I want it, but for this first time I might just take a bit of that chance element out of it, and I'm going to drop this right in here. We'll have to figure out a way to get a camera in there so that we can see, but for now I'll just use the spectator cam, but I do want a proper in-game camera in there at some point to watch what happens. And now we grab our spectator cam, we hop down here, we turn our lights on so we can see. There's not much of that left, is there? It was in pretty bad shape. And extend. No, extend. Let's see if this works. I worry that I may need to have a system where... worry that I may have to turn this on before it actually gets there. Oh no. There we go. Okay. A few pieces have flown out, as you can see, even though they really shouldn't be able to fit through, they have. Big question is, have any ended up here? Doesn't look like it, so that's good. I think I'll still need to put the lid on there, just in case some bits do manage to fly out. What's going to be a worry is that some of these chunks are going to jam this thing up. I know, I'll just sit back there. Interesting. It works. I'm actually kind of happy with that. There was definitely a lot of stuff flying around when I tested the other grinder pit styles, so this actually seems like it should be a good solution. We do need to design a lid though. And the kind of covering I'm thinking will involve... how are we going to set this up? Think, Splitsie, think. So what we're going to do for the lid is this. We're going to grab a light armor slope and pop it there. Then we're going to grab a rotor, put it there. We'll need to weld it up so that it doesn't drop as soon as we place anything on it. Then we're going to grab some blast door corner, blast door edge, go across to here, put a corner there, then another rotor, and I probably should weld this one up too. Alright, and now heavy armor blocks. Woody, no, stop turning, don't want you to go that far. So this is a bit of a funny way to do the lid. Part of the reason I first started thinking about this style of lid design was that originally, if I was going to be grinding where I can see through here, having this sort of this sort of heavy armor block, it would allow me to put sensors and cameras on this so I can see down, whereas the blast door blocks don't give you that flexibility. So that was what made me think this style of lid would be interesting to use. And we're going to turn you off. We're going to turn your braking torque up. And I think the lower limit will end up being minus 90. And the upper limit, this could end badly. 0. Yeah, good. Phew. There we go. Then when we reverse, we're going to hit the roof, aren't we? I think we are. I think I'm going to need to stop ahead of where I said. I kind of like that look. I'm sure if I rearranged where these were attached, it would work a whole lot better. But my brain can't work that out right now, so I'm just going to leave it as is. And I'm going to adjust that rotor to have its minimum angle where it's currently sitting. I probably actually would have had more clearance if I'd just had the thing open and flip backwards. But then I would have had to use blast doors, and I didn't want to use blast doors. So this is what I've come up with. And I think if I moved the rotor... Actually, if I moved the rotor down closer to the hole, I could probably lever the whole thing back and get it right out of the way. But I'll play around with that next time. I feel so happy that we've got the vector thrust vehicles working properly now. No more clanging noises coming from them, which is great. We've now got to do some upgraded designs to the sandbags. These are going to need to have the ability to be switched off remotely, and I really want that to just be with a single button press. So I'm going to use the transmit receive script and put some programmable blocks and timers on the sandbags so that we can control them all from the retrieval craft, so the ugly duckling or whatever other craft we use, and be able to switch them all off. I'm hoping, and I haven't tested this yet, but I'm hoping that if a few of them are in range when I press the button, all of the ones that are in range will turn off. So it'll be a single button press, all of the guns go off, single button press, all of the guns come back on again. And someone did suggest something that I probably should do as well, which is set up a timer to automatically turn them back on, just in case I forget, as I probably would forget. I almost certainly would forget. So I will think about how we'll set that up next time, but I will plan to recycle all of the sandbags and rebuild them so that we can get proper ones that are able to be easily switched off, as I think going out there and manually updating them is going to be a bit of a pain. Although I may end up manually updating the new ones that are replaced out there and just recycling the old ones. That appears to be a stinging adversary that is just hovering there. Interesting. Am I still getting attacked by them even though I can't see their antenna? How very, very odd. Seems like we saw a few different bases during the last couple of days, but I can no longer see any of them except for the original base that we know is on the other side of the ice lake. Well, still giving us a bit more time and hopefully get those sandbags fixed up and start salvaging properly, and make sure I don't forget to add the same programmable block control to the goose, since it's got a turret. Basically anything with a turret will need to be able to be switched off with that button press so that I hopefully won't miss any of them. So the tick, the goose, and literally everything that ever gets a turret will have to have a timer block on it that switches off turrets that has exactly the same name. And how on earth have these ended up over here? That's just weird. Well, there's going to be a sandbag version 3, it looks like. So there's that, and plenty more to come. So I'll see you then.